So today we're going to talk about the best places to live in Seattle, Washington with kids. Now, I have kids, my sister has kids, lots of people in Seattle have kids, and I have been raising them here for the last, my son is 14 now. So I can tell you what we've done and also what I did as a kid. I was a kid here myself, some 40-ish years in the past. So let's get into it, and we'll start out by taking a look at the map so we can see together kind of what some of these names are. I assume you might be relocating from out of the area, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with what I mean when I talk about some of these areas. So for practical intents and purposes, we have this area to work with when we call it the Greater Seattle area. So up here in the north is Everett. This is kind of the last big city along I-5. Marysville is a suburb of that, and Granite Falls and Lake Stevens are kind of a suburb of Everett, as well as Snohomish. So this is kind of the northern areas here. Then we go out to Monroe. This is where I would say more like farm country, more rural. We have some land with acreage. We have some cows, and this is where like the Evergreen State Fair is, if you know how I like to go there and see the horses. And then we pretty much get up into the mountains and civilization drops off. So that's Monroe. Then we have down here what I would call the east side. And the east side is east of Lake Washington. So you can see here in the middle is Lake Washington. This kind of divides the Seattle and Bellevue areas, which are sort of a twin city situation across the lake from each other. It used to be that Seattle was the big booming metropolis and Bellevue was kind of the sleepier, more woodsy area. And with Microsoft coming in about 30 years ago, 40 years ago, in my lifetime here, Bill Gates lives in this area. And then we also have other companies, like other tech companies are now building offices. And so there's more momentum on the Bellevue side. Bellevue is thought to be nicer and cleaner, has better schools. So this area right here, what I would refer to as sort of the east side of the lake, is definitely a hot spot to live with kids. Very popular, very wonderful, if you can afford it. So coming down here takes us to Renton and the south end of the lake. And Renton, I would say this whole sort of South Seattle area has historically been not as nice. More industrial, more like SeaTac is there, our big international airport, and Boeing is there, which is an airplane manufacturer. Boeing also has a factory, I guess, in Renton. So this has been kind of a bit more of a industrial area with less nice real estate, less expensive homes. And then down here is the county line by Federal Way. So this is where King County stops and Pierce County begins. The Pierce County area is more plugged in with the city of Tacoma and the Lewis McChord Air Force Base down there. So this is certainly a nice place to live if you're driving into Tacoma, probably an hour to get into Seattle with traffic. So this area, the east side we mentioned is so nice, has kind of been extending into the Bothell area and into the Renton area. And that, I would say, the sort of Renton, East Renton Highlands, Maple Valley is kind of becoming a nicer area, but still slightly more affordable. And same with the Bothell, Mill Creek area up here. These areas have good schools and they have sort of that east side mentality. It's stretching in here for people that can't afford to live in Bellevue but want to get a lot of the things that Bellevue has to offer. Now, this video is specifically about kids. And I want to say it's funny because Seattle proper, the city of Seattle, actually has more dogs than kids. So this is not a high density child area. Part of that is, maybe more singles, maybe more couples without children, and maybe people with children have chosen to not live in Seattle proper, but kind of expand out from the area. I'll also say right here, we have the University of Washington. Go Huskies. So this is a big urban campus. We have hospitals, we have law schools, we have the regular campus, fraternities and sororities and that type of a thing. So that's certainly a large demographic of people, maybe 60,000 people that are not going to have kids in general, younger student population. Here is the downtown Seattle area where, you have the Space Needle, all the skyscrapers, South Lake Union. So this is where we get a lot of high-rise stuff. And historically, I have seen a child down there, like coming out of the building, living in the building kind of a thing. But for the most part, these are going to be very small studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and they're not going to lend themselves well to what most people think of as a traditional lifestyle with kids running around in the backyard, because there's no backyard. So that being said, where do you want to live if you have kids? One of the most popular areas historically has been this area here in Shoreline. And one of the reasons for that is that we're just north of Seattle, so it's a fast drive into the city for parents who need to get down there for employment. It's also just north of the boundary of the city of Seattle. So if you don't want to live in the city of Seattle for a variety of reasons, one of which might be more lax enforcement of rules around things like prostitution and drug use, crime, graffiti, tent camping, those types of things. You're going to have more of those issues in the city of Seattle. So a lot of people have chosen to come just north of 145th, 145th Street, which is where the city of Seattle ends and the city of Shoreline begins. So then you can be in Shoreline school districts and you're outside of the city of Seattle. And these schools have historically been pretty good. I think they're okay at the moment, maybe like 7 on the great schools kind of ranking. Some are better, some are worse. But just giving it a little bit of context, this has been one of the most popular areas. And I would say as you go north, things tend to get less expensive. So if you're not able to afford to live here and you still want to be outside of the city of Seattle, you could be looking here at Linwood, or you could be looking here at Bothell, and then you could be looking here in the east side. So anytime you can afford it, the east side is going to offer the best of the best schools, the best properties, and the most expensive property values. So for a lot of people, the east side has become prohibitively expensive. But for some, if you want to get into, say, a top-rated public school, you might be willing to trade off. Like maybe you have a townhouse instead of a single family house, or maybe you have a condo instead of a single family house in order to get into some of these very good school districts, because otherwise you'd be paying for private school, which could be an additional $20,000 to $40,000 a year per student for tuition. If you're interested in the South End due to maybe family or employment in the South End, then this is probably going to be the area that you're looking at, the Renton Highlands, Maple Valley. Again, good schools and sort of this east side leakage idea. Up here, one of the best areas is Mill Creek. And then if you're more conservative, small business minded, weren't masking during, the last couple years, that type of a thing, then you might also want to look at this area up here called Snohomish. The name of the town is the same as the name of the county, so don't be confused. So I will say that as we go farther north into Snohomish, Marysville, Arlington, it's going to become generally more conservative politically and socially. And as we go more into the heart of the city here, downtown Seattle, where the tech companies are, where the university is, and that type of a thing, you're going to find more liberal sentiments. So if you're politically sensitive, that's something to keep in mind as well. Okay, now let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at the map here more in depth. Now, one of the things that you will really notice is that we have a lot of water on this map, and sometimes that can make things a little bit difficult when it comes to traveling around. So I will say that a couple of these areas, especially Bainbridge Island here and Mercer Island here, are some of the best places to raise kids. They have great schools. There's a lot of money in these areas, beautiful houses, expensive real estate. So if you can get there, again, if you can afford to be there, these are also excellent opportunities. However, because they're islands, that can present a little bit of a difficulty. So here, Bainbridge Island in particular is harder to access, because we're going to have to go over the ferry. You can see if you look on Google Maps, there's a little dotted line right here where I just scribbled on with the red. From downtown Seattle, there's a ferry. It takes about 20 minutes to get across, but then you also might have to wait in the line. Some people will walk on or bike on or motorcycle on to the ferry to save time, to make it easier to park, to make sure that they get on and they don't have to wait for the next ferry. And some people will also have a house. For example, I had a friend who lived in Bainbridge Island and then also had a houseboat here on Lake Union as kind of their Seattle crash pad when they weren't at the big house over on Bainbridge Island. So a lot of people who work here in downtown Seattle will do this. Maybe if they're a lawyer or something like that, a doctor, they need to be able to go back and forth, and maybe they work late nights. They don't want to go all the way back. They might have a little apartment or something in town as well. But we have beautiful waterfront property here with good views looking out over Seattle, good schools, and then it's more rural here in the back side of the island. We actually went to an outdoor camp there for, I think, a church retreat a couple years ago, and they had, 100 acres and all these woods and tree houses, and it was set up for science experiments for kids in the summer and that type of a thing. So there are a lot of nice resources on Bainbridge Island. It's definitely, kind of the front row seat to downtown Seattle on one side, and then the back, like I said, less built up. Here on Mercer Island, this little island is some of the most premium real estate in the entire city. This is a luxury island, to be sure, although there are just regular looking houses there that cost $3 million. There are apartments and condos and other things like that, but the schools here are definitely A+. And from a commute perspective, you've got great access because this highway actually goes onto the island. So you can drive on and off the island. You're not constrained by doing things on boats, but yet you have a lot of beautiful waterfront property here with docks and boats and really nice opportunity to enjoy the water, see the views of Seattle and Bellevue, and have your own, lakefront house on a primo lake right here. So great schools, great community, pretty isolated, pretty wealthy. Right here, Bellevue, Medina, also a very high-end area. And then I would say Redmond and Woodinville, which is up here, have been a little bit more rural. Redmond is where the Microsoft campus is, so this area has definitely seen a lot of growth and interest in being nearby. But as we get to Maltby and Duval, these areas tend to be closer to this green border, which is the woods, the more natural spaces. So in this direction, if you do want to be on the east side and take advantage of what the east side has to offer, the further away you are from Seattle, the less expensive it's going to be. So this going out here into farm country is going to be cheaper because you don't have a good commute into Seattle. You have an okay commute into Redmond, but getting into Seattle is going to take you another 20 or 30 minutes to get over here. So if all you need to do is get into Redmond, I would look in this direction to the northeast for less expensive options, and going down to the Seattle area is going to make it more expensive. Like I said, Medina, Mercer Island, some of the most expensive real estate in the entire state right here. I will say Duval and Carnation out here had some huge price appreciation during the last couple years, 2021, 2022, because people wanted to get out of town. They didn't need to be close to work because they were working from home or they were just commuting in once or twice a week. And so this area, which has kind of been on the verge of wilderness, for example, my son used to do an outdoor school and he would do it in Duval. We would drive him over here to Duval, and then they would put him on a bus and drive him for another 45 minutes out into the woods where they would then, eat dandelions and roll in the mud from what it looked like when I picked him up. But this is definitely a great area if you're interested in hiking and camping and river rafting and skiing and cross country and backcountry and all of those things. You're really close to it. This is Snoqualmie Pass. This is where I learned to ski and that type of thing. So all this way out here to Issaquah has some nice cross-country ski runs and that type of thing. If you like to do water sports, you can rent boats here in Lake Washington. You can rent boats in Lake Union. This is where we usually go. We'll rent a kayak and go paddling around, look at the Gasworks Park and the houseboats and the downtown Seattle city skyline. It's very beautiful. If you want to get up to Lake Stevens, there's a lake up here. There's Silver Lake in Everett. There's Green Lake here in town where you can rent a paddle boat and that type of thing, which is the kind that you do with your feet. They also have stand-up kayaks, stand-up paddle boards. Anyway, there are a lot of different places to get out on the water, even if you don't have your own boat. But most people who do have their own boat are going to be launching like Edmonds, Mukilteo, Linwood. There's a little lake up here, Martha Lake, Lake Washington, and this is Lake Sammamish. So lots of places to get in the water, lots of places to get into the mountains. If being outdoors is a big part of your vision for your life in Seattle with your family, you're going to have plenty of options no matter where you live. Most people aren't fortunate enough to actually live on the water, so they'll tow their boat, put a kayak on the roof, get an inflatable kayak, rent a boat, do something that works for them when that time comes that they're ready to go out and about and explore and have some outdoor adventures. Okay, so we've talked a lot about it, but bottom line, where do you want to live? So here's kind of my priority list. First choice, if you can afford it, the east side, somewhere basically from here to here, including Mercer Island, including the Renton Highlands, including Issaquah. This is going to be the area where you're going to have the best schools, really nice neighborhoods, high quality, clean enforcement, all that good stuff, and close to work if you live in Redmond or Bellevue. Decent access if you're trying to get into Seattle, but you'd have to go across the 520 bridge, which is a toll bridge now, or I-90, which is free. And they are working on not only having buses, but also having light rail options to take you back and forth across the lake. If you can't afford that, or that's not a fit for some reason, most people are then coming out here to the Bothell area. This is the overflow area for the east side. Renton is the overflow area for the south end. From there, I would say with kids, if you can get into this neighborhood here by the University of Washington, this is Windermere, Laurelhurst, some nice Broadmoor, a gated community. Again, these are more luxurious price points, but if you want to be in the city and have nice areas with good parks and clean access and things like that, this is the area where I would look. Ballard has gotten pretty rough with more indigence and drug use and that type of thing. Same with downtown Seattle, and same with right around the University of Washington, which is in here. So these neighborhoods are adjacent, but I wouldn't live like in Fraternity Row or something like that. Wouldn't necessarily live in Windermere. This area is nice. This is called Magnolia, but I don't see as many kids there. And this area is really nice here. A lot of people who lived here have lived here for a long time because it's a very nice here in Magnolia. It's a really nice area. It's the type of place where you have a house on a bluff overlooking the water. And once you get there, it's such a nice address that there's no place else to really go that's nicer. So you just stay there for the rest of your life, and proud of it. There's jokes going around like the Magnolia people fight with the people in Fremont or Queen Anne and other neighborhoods. So there's a lot of pride and place in being in some of these areas. But this is kind of a stately, older home type of area. And here I would say more apartments as well as stately older homes here in Queen Anne. Over here is West Seattle, and I'm going to say, again, a lot of condos, some homes. This area feels farther removed from the city. You have to go across this bridge called the West Seattle Bridge, and then up I-5 to get into town, and that has historically been a little bit harder traffic. So this kind of, and then this is an industrial area here with a lot of stuff going on with boats and shipping, and this is an international port with people coming in from China and unloading their boats right here and putting them on the railroad tracks and that type of thing. So when you get out here, definitely like a fun beachy vibe, lots of condos looking out over the shore. We have the Fauntleroy Ferry that comes out of here. We have a lighthouse. We have a pool. We have fishing. So there is a lot to be said for this area. I would describe it as maybe a more artsy and eclectic feeling area, lots of gardens, lots of sunshine. So you'll have to check it out and see if that feels good to you. I don't think they have as highly rated schools in this area though. Okay, from here, I've sort of circled and X'd some of the ones that I thought were best, and then I deleted a lot of my other scribbles. From here, I would look up into the Shoreline School District. This has great access to Seattle, pretty good history of good schools. This area along Highway 99 is a little rough, so caution in this middle area between 99 and I-5, but down here by the lake and over here by the Sound, both have some really nice homes. Lake Forest Park is right down here. So the closer you are to the water, the nicer it's going to be. And then the closer you are to the freeway and 99 in the center, the more rough it's potentially going to be. Mount Lake Terrace, kind of older, sleepy. Briar over here, stately. It used to have like horse land and that type of thing. Edmonds, very nice, especially down near the water. I would say Edmonds is a good place to look. It is going to be a little bit further of a drive because you have to go down this highway to get to the freeway. So you do feel a little bit more isolated getting into town, but it's doable. So Richmond Beach out here in Shoreline. Innis Arden is a nice like HOA protected Tony kind of area, Richmond Beach. And the Edmonds Bowl down here. The city of Edmonds is larger. It extends out adjacent to Linwood, but the bowl is the area with the view of the water. And there's a really nice, really cute downtown walkable, shoppable area down here by the Edmonds Ferry, called the Edmonds Marina, which you definitely want to go down there and check out if you're in town, if you're looking at Edmonds at all. But this does tend to skew again toward like condos. Gives me a Cabot Cove vibe if you've ever been watching Murder, She Wrote with Jessica Fletcher. A lot of people in condos looking out over the water. Why would they ever move? And then a lot of nicer homes that aren't exactly entry-level price point homes. They're your second or third home that you've moved up into over time. So it does tend to be a more expensive area that people kind of graduate into rather than starting their family off right there from the beginning. Going up this way, Linwood is in this area, and I really like Linwood for the convenience factor. I lived here for 10 years. This is where my kids were born, and I think there's a lot to say for it. The schools aren't the best, but it's affordable and it's extremely convenient, especially if you're moving and you're not sure where you're going to work. You can drive to Everett on I-5, you can drive to Bellevue on I-5, and you can drive to Seattle on I-5. Oops, this is 405 over here. So you're kind of at this intersection of all of the highways, and you can really get to wherever you're going or think you might be going if you're not totally sure what the commute is going to look like. Schools aren't the top, so you might consider private school if you have a lot of money. But if you don't have a lot of money and you're priced out of some of these other areas, the schools aren't bad either. The biggest complaint that most people have about Linwood is that there's no like cutesy downtown gathering place type of area. There's Alderwood Mall, there's Costco, there's Home Depot, there's Chipotle, the most important restaurant, Red Lobster, McDonald's, all of the other restaurants that you could possibly imagine, all of the shopping that you could imagine. There are a lot of furniture stores in this area, and this is the north end of where our light rail is coming to. So we're building the light rail now. I believe this light rail stop is supposed to be finished in the next year or two. It might even be done by the time they're watching this video. So we're close, and that's a big deal. It's caused a lot of building and development in Linwood. So there are a lot of condos, townhomes, apartments, and some new construction development going on in this area. I think the schools have historically been weaker than the schools over here in Bothell, but with all of the new money coming into this area, it wouldn't surprise me if we see, an improvement in the quality of the schools over the next 5 to 10 years as well. And then over here, Mill Creek. a higher end, more ritzy, tony feeling, golf courses nearby, large homes, that type of a thing, but a little bit further north. This is going to take you a while longer to get down into either Seattle or Bellevue, but you do have good freeway access. And then up here, Mukilteo. In this area, we have a lot of people who are enjoying views of the Sound. So we do have some very nice properties. We have golf course properties here, and we attract a lot of people from Boeing. So here in Everett is where the Boeing manufacturing facility is. So a lot of the engineer types or the pilot types have come to this area. We have a friend who used to be a 747 pilot and now lives in Mukilteo. He was doing some pilot training and kind of outsourced consulting work with Boeing for a while. There's also a hobby airfield here. So if you like to fly on the weekends or you have a little, four-seater plane or that type of a thing, then you might be attracted to Mukilteo. But the Mukilteo School District is excellent. It tends to be a wealthy area. I don't see a lot of crime or homelessness going on here. And I would say the biggest advantage or disadvantage is that it is a little bit more removed from the city. But again, if you're going north into Everett, this is a really nice option. And then Snohomish here, pretty conservative, small town, people driving through Main Street with American flags waving and that type of thing, which is quite a statement here in the Seattle area. Lake Stevens is a great suburb for people going into Everett. Everett has a couple of rough areas here by the water. This is kind of a known bad, well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, more homeless area, more drug use, that type of thing. South Everett as well can be a little bit rough. So we're just using caution in these areas. I've been actually driving out to show people stuff and they've called me and they've said, we're canceling the showing. Like, I just drove by a homeless person. It's not for me. So a lot of these suburbs around Everett are popular for that reason, but caution if you're trying to get into Seattle proper. Okay, so this is my overview of living in the Seattle area with a family. Some places you want to take a close look at, and some places maybe you want to avoid. I would say go ahead and check out my other videos drilling down into these different neighborhoods, touring the different areas, so you can get an idea for what they look like, boots on the ground. And if you have any questions for me, feel free to write them in the comments. I am a real estate agent. I would love to help match you up with exactly the right neighborhood for you. This is a good general overview, but it's always nice to have that concierge service where you can describe what you're looking for and we can say, yes, we can help you find it. I'm a realtor, a real estate agent. My sister is as well. And we have a little team down here. We'd be happy to help you find something just for you. So please feel free to give us a call. You can visit us online at homeproassociates.com. And until then, we'll see you in the next video.